Hey folks, just a warning that this episode has a couple of swears. Please make sure to hide your kids, unless they're cool.
Hey there, how you going? Can I please get an omelette with...
Have it here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you a number first.
Thank you. It's the morning after the 2022 federal election. It was a bit of a late night, so we haven't slept very much, but neither have the Home to Bilo team.
I'm doing Channel 9 at 1. So ABC are on their way out here.
We're meeting up with them at a local bakery in Biloela. Angela's preparing for media interviews, and the rest of the team are just taking a bit of a moment for themselves. For legal eagle Simone, it's finally hitting her that the Nadeslingam family will actually come home to Biloela.
It's sinking in for me now. Like last night, I just felt like sort of there, but also like I was a spectator watching us, and I felt
The vibe is exhausted but relieved. That is until Bronwyn brings over a Biloela local to our table.
I've been too tired. We're just happy we've got our family home, so we could, just
Now this person knows Bronwyn and Simone, but she hasn't been involved with the campaign. And what follows is a conversation that completely changes the mood of the morning. Now we can't use her voice, she didn't give us consent, but we want to show you the sort of questions that she asked.
Now we've got a voice actor to voice her lines using the exact words and in a tone as close to her tone as they can match. And with every question she asked, the Home to Bilo team had an answer. She asked questions like,
So what exception do they put them under? An exception because of what? But there are so many in this same space of not having got other visas, not having got other permissions, and then having to go home when the time comes. What confused me about this is the amount of time that they were here in Biloela. Why did they never get their visa changed to a working visa? So that's another thing. The ones that have gone back, the Tamils that have gone back because they came here under a temporary protection visa, what's their outcome? So where's the evidence of that? How come that hasn't been brought to the table?
I'm sitting here. I face the wall.
This is Vashni from the Home to Bilo team, who is also a Tamil asylum seeker.
I seen people killed.
So how did you get to stay here?
I went to the immigration system. I applied for my protection visa, and I got protection
temporary.
So why are you different to our people?
visa. It's just the system. It's just the legal systems here.
But I can't understand how, using the system that we have in place, you're allowed to stay here in Australia?
Yeah.
You're still under a temporary protection visa. And that runs out, when does that run out?
This year.
This year. So this year you will have to return to Sri Lanka.
I can't. I can't return to Sri Lanka.
Why can't, we won't let you return to Sri Lanka, or Sri Lanka won't let you come back in?
It's not safe for me to return to Sri Lanka.
But why is it not safe? Considering I can buy a ticket and go and have a lovely holiday.
Because you're not a Tamil.
Because you're not a Tamil.
Yeah,
Because
and they're not allowed to
you're
get
born
an
there.
education.
Because you're just a foreign person. You are not a Tamil.
So as a Tamil, when you get off the plane,
Yeah.
what, you're not allowed to have a job, or you're not allowed to have an education, or you're not allowed
I
to...
will be persecuted. I will be discriminated. I will be seen less than other people. I can't have freedom. I can't speak my words.
When you say I can't speak my word, what does that mean?
I don't have freedom.
But you don't use your language here either.
Yes, she does.
I do.
We talk, yeah.
I do.
She's not allowed to.
You can go to the road and you can say, I support red team or blue team or One Nation or One Party.
Yeah.
If I do that against the majority government in Sri Lanka, I'll be shot to death in front of everyone, and then nobody will come and question. Do you want me to die like that?
the legal right to seek asylum. One I'm damn sure that you would exercise, I would exercise if we ever needed to.
But what I'm saying is, as a country, if that's our basis for people to be allowed to just freely come in and stay in Australia, then we have to allow every Chinese person and every North Korean person and every Russian person and every Ghanese person to come.
Did you say that we don't have to help anyone because we can't help everybody? Like, that logic doesn't...
No, Simone, never would I say that, and I'm not even saying that. What I have never understood about this is, why was there not a pathway where once you're in here as a temporary protection visa, because I've seen so many come through Biloela who have come on one visa, moved to another visa, become Australians, and yee-haw, thank you, fantastic, that's amazing. And that's what we want. It's absolutely what we want, is everybody to be here.
But our government instigated a system, and the Labor government's done it previously too, a system of temporary protection, which doesn't give anyone any certainty in life, and it certainly doesn't give them the chance to transition to other permanent visas. So our government made that choice to do that.
But my mum is waiting for me, so I'd love to stay. Love to stay.
Okay, yeah, all right. Thanks, see you later.
Bye.
You okay?
I would actually have
Absolutely shaking. I'm sorry, but that is everything that's fucking wrong with our country. Sorry, I just feel absolutely...
It's okay, guys.
I feel so bad.
angry.
I just thought it might be an interesting perspective. I'll call her over and draw her into a conversation.
See,
But it is, because that's probably what a lot of people think, and those are the
Yes, it
questions that
is,
people
yes.
have. They're like, why can't they say?
And kudos to her for having the guts, to an extent, of saying what we've been up against, but silent. Like very rarely, except for her, very rarely would people be so blatant in saying what they think to us.
okay, we'll see you back.
See you
See you there.
second. Oh my fucking god.
I was so anxious the entire time.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because like we should be able to just have these discussions, but like,
It was fucked up.
yeah, jump in the car, let's keep talking.
The fact that Vashini even had to say, I will get shot.
Yeah.
And this woman just was like, oh, well, I can just buy a ticket to Sri Lanka. Like,
Actually, now think about it, it felt like she was pulling out every card under the sun to try and explain why these people should not be allowed to stay. It didn't feel like there was an ounce of compassion for humans.
absolutely. I think she placed a lot of weight and importance on rules.
Yeah. I guess probably from a layperson's perspective, it's inherently unfair that the immigration minister gets to choose. Yeah.
You okay?
No, I'm just really annoyed and upset by that woman. And I just hate that she has that power over me. Because she shouldn't. Maybe it's just like every person of colour's experience in Australia is summed up in the way this woman talked to us and talked to Vashini, and it was just really bad.
You okay?
Yeah.
You were trying to bring me back down to earth yesterday about what this country's actually like and what this town is actually like. And this morning's conversation is kind of an affirmation of what you were saying yesterday.
Yeah. We clearly have a long way to go to change this narrative around asylum seekers.
Even though the Labour Party has won and has promised to bring the family back to Bilo, it's not all good news. Because the Nadeslinagams are just 4 of thousands of asylum seekers without permanent protection in Australia.
You have been told a lie.
To stop the deportation of a Tamil family.
Let them in! Let them stay!
Protecting Australia's borders.
Hypocrisy.
Detained on Christmas Island.
The United Nations Convention on Refugees. This is our country.
We are a generous, open-hearted people.
A lie.
I'm Tanesh Delenagaraja.
I'm Jay Uy.
This is episode 6, Cockatoo Homeland. We're gonna take a selfie.
Oh my god, yes, thank you for
Actually.
After another night in Bilo, Tanesh and I bid farewell to the Home to Bilo team.
Okay, we'll see you later. Have a nice trip.
Thank you. Bye. But less than a week later, we get some very interesting news.
A family's wish to go home to Bilo finally granted.
The Interim Home Affairs Minister called Biloela with the breakthrough. Priya, Nades, Kopika and Tanika Nadeslinagam are coming home.
And this is very good news.
Yeah, but that's just part of it. Here's what happened when Acting Immigration Minister Jim Chalmers called the Home to Bilo campaign team that day.
Had the pleasantries, and then it was very much the family is going to be allowed to return to Biloela. So immediately there was like this sense of, they're coming home, and there was this excitement.
And then we were like, what visa is it?
Using ministerial discretion to intervene, Jim Chalmers is granting the family bridging visas while they work towards the resolution of their immigration status, meaning the legal marathon continues.
When he granted 4 bridging visas, I was quite disappointed and a bit like, what? How could they do this? Like, is it going to be the case that this is never going to be over, that we're never going to get these permanent visas?
So we had this high and then we sort of crashed and we were like, oh, this hasn't actually changed their visa status. It hasn't actually meant that they're safe.
It was really interesting because all of us were kind of like, what? And had the cameras not been on us, I would have gone, what the actual heck is going on here? Like, where's the permanent visa? What are they playing at? You know, like it would have been a very different sort of a reaction.
Which is like very different to the overwhelmingly positive news stories.
But I guess the key thing here is, after being in detention for over 4 years, the family can finally return home.
We are recording. Okay, Tanesh, I'm just calling you because I know you hate being called, but it's just quicker than texting.
It honestly gives me anxiety. If it wasn't you calling me, I probably would not pick up. It's gonna go to voicemail.
Well, glad you pick up for me. Okay, so Angela has sent through the details for the flight that the family are going to be on when they return to Biloela.
So, does this mean we're going?
I mean, we have to, right?
Well, I feel like I need to personally thank Priya for the laddus that she gave us.
True. And we also just want to be there for this very historic moment. The flight is from Brisbane to Thangool Airport.
Oh, Thangool. Where is that?
It's like 10-15 minutes from Biloela. It's their closest airport. We visited Angela when she was at the polling booth there.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
We're on a Metro 23, which seats 19 passengers.
Okay, now I'm like slightly concerned about making it there alive, but okay.
So 10th of June to the 13th of June, shall I book the tickets?
Let's do it.
So it's Friday, the 10th of June. We're at Brisbane Airport. And having about to eat before the Nadeslinagams and the home to Biloela arrive to fly to Biloela.
I'm enjoying my lamb, Greek, and salad.
I am a bit envious of your food.
Would you like a tomato?
You don't like tomato?
Not really.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Shall we make it to the gate?
Okay. How do I say how are you again?
Aprisuham.
Aprisuham?
Yeah. Nadeslinagams.
Aprisuham.
Nadeslinagams.
Rows 1 to 15 will use the forward stairs and aircraft.
You're going to see them well before I do.
They're here.
Oh
my God, how are you? Great to see you, Paige.
Hi.
How are you?
Go. Aprisuham. Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Aprisuham. I've just learned one phrase. Hello. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And then we all just wait around nervously to board the plane.
Are you nervous or happy or...
No, I am happy. I am at a loss for words because of the happiness. We were also expecting to celebrate Taranika's birthday in Biloela. We need to thank the Labor government for giving us that opportunity. Taranika wants a pink party. That's what she says she wants, and that's what she will get.
Do you want to hear yourself?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, you got to put these on.
Okay.
Yeah?
Hello. I can hear my voice.
Or maybe, who else's voice do you want to hear?
My sister.
You want to hear your sister's voice?
Hello.
You want to say something else to her?
Do you like a flower? Yes.
How are you feeling?
Feeling.
I am happy. I'm happy that I'm seeing my family. I waited for 4.5 years. I dreamed of this. I was not expecting a day like this to come. The Biloela dirt beneath my feet, breathing the freshest air.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Link Airways would like to welcome customers who are travelling on Biloela today on FC4.
Then we get on this tiny plane that will take the family home.
Son, my 4.5 years dream is play now.
This is it. This is the moment. Woohoo!
Emotions run high, particularly for Priya as the plane takes off and as it touches down.
When I got married, I felt joy. When I became a mother, I felt joy. Similarly, when I arrived at Bangul airport, it was like I felt joy for the third time. Why was I put on this earth? I realised I was here to meet this moment. Thousands of people have shown me love. My life felt whole that day. I was not expecting this love to make me whole.
It's like the way butterflies freely fly. Because we are now no longer under people's control, we can make our own decisions.
As we exit the plane, we see a huge crowd of supporters with signs and cheers gathered just behind the airport fence. And as the Nadeslinagams disembark, they're greeted with this. Nades waves enthusiastically at the crowd. Priya holds Kopika's hand and blows a kiss to the locals. Veronica waves timidly as Nades grabs her hand. They stand together as a family for a moment before Priya pulls Nades closer. He gives her a big hug.
They finally embrace everyone who has come to welcome them home. Priya falls to the ground and greets it with a kiss.
Yes. I'm okay. I touch in the blanket.
I'm touching the place, she says.
Yes, 4.5 years.
Then there's a quick press conference.
It's a special day for me personally because I haven't had the opportunity to see my friends in the flesh since they were unnecessarily taken from us over 4 years ago.
This was the first flight, as Priya said. They got to walk through the front of the airport.
Today we celebrate, but the next step is to make sure that we don't ever do this to anyone else in Australia ever again.
Thank you to all in below community, wonderful friends. I starting new life. I joined in my family. So happy. Thank you.
And then the family head to the house in Biloela that had been waiting for them, a place they can finally call home.
Okay, we ready? Yeah. Ready to see your house?
Yes. Is there one?
We're going to go into the driveway.
That's a house.
This is your new house. This is your new house.
Yay! I'm going to take my seatbelt off. Thank you. I'm going to take my seatbelt off for me.
Hi. Welcome home.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Now that the family are back in Billow, the campaign team are not stopping.
Yeah, I remember a few of the Home to Billow team talking about how you can't unlearn what you've learnt. They're ready to essentially go up against the government for all the policies that are endangering asylum seekers and to fight for all the asylum seekers who still need protection.
Yeah, I think we've had 2 trips that we've organised to Canberra to advocate for people who are still waiting for resolution of their status for permanent visas, and also for people that have been refused even temporary protection visas. So we will definitely keep advocating for them because they're all part of the same, Nades and Priya were part of that group.
We've been meeting about, this rally and another delegation to the ministers and taking out some ads and we're starting to mobilise our database and our social media following just to start kind of going, okay, guess what? We thought it was over, but it's not.
But they've got quite a fight on their hands. In the press conference earlier, Simone spoke about how they want to make sure what happened to this family won't ever happen again to anyone else. But what happened to this family is a huge anomaly.
Yeah, just because they're home safe doesn't change any of the systems and policies that meant that they were taken, almost deported twice, and then detained for 4 years in the first place.
What's worse, there are even more systems and tactics our government uses to avoid the responsibility of asylum seekers, many that Priya and Nades never encountered.
Gee, this is what the Home to Billa team is up against. This feels a bit David and Goliath, but okay, what are these tactics?
We're going to touch upon 4 key ones. First up, the most peculiar one, public information campaigns.
Tanesh, what are public information campaigns?
They're essentially advertising campaigns, but for a specific government purpose. Remember when everyone was checking COVID cases daily?
Yeah, I don't want to remember.
Well, state governments used social media and ads and press conferences to keep people informed about not just COVID cases, but restriction changes as well. They want to influence a particular behavior or way of thinking. In this case, you following COVID restrictions. So they run a campaign to get that to happen. In the same way, the federal government uses these sorts of campaigns to stop asylum seekers from coming to Australia.
But they're not in Australia. They're running these campaigns overseas.
Yeah, in many countries, like Sri Lanka, where asylum seekers may come from.
So Australia has been utilizing overseas public information campaigns since at least 1994. Their first campaign was in Beihai, China.
This is Dr. Josh Watkins, lecturer of global studies at the National University of Singapore, whose work focuses on immigration and border security policy.
My research has primarily focused on Australia. So there have been a number of campaigns in Sri Lanka, and they've used a number of different tactics, from radio advertisements, banners, posters, leaflets, YouTube campaigns in Tamil in Sri Lanka. But we don't know all of the campaigns, we don't know all the tactics, because very often these are secret campaigns that the Australian government doesn't even advertise that they're funding. So very often the Australian government doesn't implement these campaigns themselves, but rather the Australian government hires either the International Organization for Migration or multinational marketing and advertising firms, communication firms.
J. Don't you work in marketing?
I do, yeah.
You should recognize some of the companies involved.
Porter Novelli, if I'm pronouncing that right, Novelli. Universal McCann, Wise Strategic Consulting, Leo Burnett. I'm not sure, this is a famous company to my understanding, but I'm not 100% sure how it's pronounced, but Saatchi. How is that pronounced, Jay? Do you know?
It's Saatchi and Saatchi.
Saatchi and Saatchi?
Saatchi and Saatchi are huge. They're the creative brainchild behind campaigns for big brands like Toyota, Cadbury, St. George Bank, NRMA, even Arnott's Biscuits.
No, not Arnott's Biscuits. I love Vegemite shapes.
Ew.
You say ill?
Yeah, I'm not a shapes person.
And you'll see Australia continue to spend money running advertising campaigns, videos popping up on people's computers, even sort of board games for people in Sri Lanka to play about no way to get to Australia, to try and discourage asylum seekers boarding boats and seeking asylum in Australia.
This is Ben Doherty from The Guardian Australia, who has been to Sri Lanka and seen these ads firsthand.
And it's things like you can go to Colombo or Negombo, which is a fishing village north of the capital, and you'll see huge big billboards saying no way to get to Australia, all of those sort of things. It's this sort of really overt presence of Australia sort of maintaining and almost sort of pushing its border all the way to the shoreline of Sri Lanka, this kind of externalising the Australian border as far away as possible to try and deter that.
There have been so many campaigns that have run in Sri Lanka, like the Don't Be Deceived by the Lies of People Smugglers campaign, or the Don't Be Sorry campaign. And after each one, They do market research to see whether it was effective.
Yeah, like a post-campaign analysis.
You are such a fucking wanker.
Excuse me? Just because I know the terms for things?
Yeah, maybe you should know more about the politics and news of our everyday world.
True.
So what they do is they try to measure slogan retention, like how many people remembered the campaign slogans that they heard in the radio or saw on TV.
Yeah, this is all typical marketing stuff. Each campaign has an objective, and at the end, you want to see whether that objective was effective. So you run research to see whether attitudes have changed or if people remember the information they've seen. I just feel a bit dirty that marketing is being used in this way.
Marketing tactics have always been a bit smarmy, but to show you the extent our government goes to, here's an example of a campaign in Indonesia between 2009 to 2014.
And this is a campaign that was actually not targeting potential irregular migrants, but instead targeting what the Australian government referred to as potential people smugglers.
What the campaign did was to try and convince people smugglers that it was a moral and religious sin to transport refugees to Australia.
Gross.
Smarmy AF. The International Organization for Migration, or the IOM, the company running the campaign, used radio ads, billboards, branded merch, but one thing they discovered was that these fishing communities really wanted family photos, but they often couldn't afford them.
So the IOM organized a family photo day where they would take family photos and gift those framed photos to the families with anti-irregular migration slogans on them. Here's some examples. Smuggling irregular migrants is a sin. Another one is proud fishermen are observant of religion and the law. Others are sorry, not me, I know it's wrong. And they gifted coffee mugs, shirts, jackets, calendars. So every day you look at the calendar and you remind yourself that, according to the IOM, transporting refugees and asylum seekers to Australia is a sin.
And another example relates to Sri Lanka. Jay, I remember you posted about the Zero Chance campaign on your Instagram back in 2021.
Yeah, I did. It was this short film competition in Sri Lanka run by the Australian government where entrants would make a film about illegal migration to Australia. And you could win a GoPro and a drone and stuff. They even made this stupid Pac-Man style game where you're trying to evade border patrol, but you can't. You always lose.
So fucking bizarre.
So bizarre.
But guess where else our money goes?
Where?
International aid.
I mean, yeah, of course.
No, Jay, as in, this is the second tactic our government uses to not have to deal with asylum seekers on our shore, giving aid strategically.
So starting in the late 1990s, Australia started shifting its aid profile, the countries that it gives humanitarian aid to match where they thought displaced peoples may flee from, whether it be a source country or transit country. Did that help displaced populations? Very often it did, of course. Am I against humanitarian aid? Of course I'm not. But we have to understand that this is an explicit strategy to keep people living encamped, in refugee camps.
And to think we gave aid out of the goodness of our own hearts.
I feel like aid has always been a bit political, and of course this goes for Sri Lanka as well. Less than a fortnight after the Nadeslinagam family returned to Biloela, Australia gave Sri Lanka $50 million in aid.
Breaking news this hour, Australia will provide $50 million in official development assistance to support Sri Lanka. Penny Wong saying that we have a close and long-standing relationship with Sri Lanka.
$50 million.
I mean, it's not... I feel like out of the numbers in this show, that is not the biggest amount of money.
No, it's not. I mean, the Circle contract definitely takes a cake.
Yeah.
Not only that, we've gifted patrol boats, drones, GPS trackers, even trained the military in the past, all whilst knowing what each government has done and is doing to Tamils in Sri Lanka.
We knew from international sources, we knew from UN special rapporteurs that oppression and repression and violence against the Tamil minority was still continuing in Sri Lanka, but the Australian government chose political expediency. They wanted the Sri Lankan authorities, they wanted the Sri Lankan Navy on side to stop Tamil boats leaving that country, and they were prepared to do a deal with that regime.
But let's say, despite the public information campaigns and despite the aid, people still choose to flee.
Which they do.
Before the boats even get to our waters, our Navy is working hard to turn these boats back around.
Often what we've seen most recently is boats with Tamil asylum seekers on them turned around at sea, basically. People barely given a chance. Everybody knows, and it's been documented over years, the problems with making these sorts of protection claim assessments at sea, that people aren't afforded a proper access to legal counsel, not afforded proper access to interpreters. They're not able to fairly present their case.
But okay, the boat somehow makes it past our Navy and into Australian waters. That's when we start sending them offshore to be processed.
Of course, and it all started with Tampa and the Pacific Solution, which we talked about in the last episode.
Right. We sent people to be detained in Nauru and Manus Island, but it gets worse. The government decides that all asylum seekers that arrived on or after the 19th of July 2013 will never resettle in Australia. And this is literally right after Priya and Nades arrived on our shores.
If you have a valid claim, you will not be resettled in Australia. You will never live in Australia. If you choose not to go home, then you will spend a very, very long time here. You have been told a lie by people smugglers. They have taken advantage of you. They have ripped you off.
So what, they just stay in detention indefinitely?
Or until another country decides to resettle them. And we know things were bad in these offshore centers like Baruz Bachani's experience in episode 4. And these offshore centers costed us $957 million for the 2021 to 2022 financial year. But even before the Pacific Solution, before Manus Island and Nauru, we were already keeping people offshore.
Refugees would first travel to countries of first asylum, primarily Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, and they would be encamped and they would wait there until third countries, self-declared resettlement countries, so the United States, Australia, would select them for resettlement.
Unsurprisingly, our government doesn't want to resettle everyone. They want to pick and choose who they take, based on things like language, education, and employment skills. And yes, we are still talking about asylum seeker visas, not skilled migrant visas.
So at any given time, from the late 1970s across the 1980s and the 1990s and going on to this day, there were tens of thousands upon thousands of refugees encamped across Southeast Asia.
Dewey, didn't you do a podcast story on one of these refugee stories?
Yeah, one of my good friends was actually born in one of these refugee camps in Indonesia back in the early 90s.
So definitely not a new policy, but it's gotten tougher and stricter since then.
Yeah, and if an asylum seeker is somehow allowed to apply for protection here, like Priya and Nades, then they have that whole visa application process which we discussed in the first episode. It just seems like at every step of the way, our government is putting up walls and barriers to not have to accept asylum seekers.
Australia's policies are more draconian and more punitive and more inhumane than any comparable liberal democracy.
To be honest, when I think about Australian immigrant detention policies, they're a world leader.
This is journalist Maeve Higgins, who we heard from in episode 4.
And I feel like Australia making all of these early and very draconian moves has, given permission to the US and to the UK to sort of dehumanize migrants even further and to say to their own populations, look, it's fine. Australia's been doing it for a really long time.
Let me guess, other countries follow suit?
Well, I think one of the issues is that Australia is now seeking to export essentially these sorts of policies. We're seeing the UK with the Rwanda plan, which is Australia's offshore processing, not just quietly sold, but overtly promoted as a policy to be enacted.
Tony Abbott famously attempted to sell it to European countries during the increased number, the flight of primarily Syrians, but other refugees and asylum seekers from the Middle East and South Asia as well into the European Union from 2014 to 2015. And the logic has been to keep people from the global south in the global south.
Okay, so not only do we have incredibly tough policies, we're trying to get other countries to do the same. Dumb question, but why do we have these tough policies and why do other countries want to replicate them? It feels like it's more than just fear-mongering and trying to win votes. And I mean, it's costing us so much money. There's got to be a bigger reason why Australia has so many tactics to prevent asylum seekers from staying.
It's not always easy to know our government's intentions, but we can take a stab. For a lot of the academics and writers we spoke to, it's this sense of we choose who comes into our country. But also,
It's a complete avoidance of responsibility. We can look at, racial dynamics. We can look at the notion of nations, the social construction of nations. We can look at the rise of xenophobia, the persistence of xenophobia and anti-foreigner sentiment. Some of that is connected to racial sentiment as well and racism.
So something I've noticed, studying migration and reporting on migration is there's a huge difference in how people are treated depending on their race.
I think the reasons that Australia went as far as they did when they did around geographic issues, around being an island nation, around historical issues, around, a history of the White Australia policy, fears of the yellow peril from the Cold War, all of these kind of old tropes still have extant currency in the Australian political debate.
We could discuss race, but when you hear news about the Russia-Ukraine war that sounds like this...
It's really emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed.
And this is a relatively civilized, relatively European city where you wouldn't expect
expression. These are prosperous, middle-class people. These are not obviously refugees trying to get away from areas in the Middle East.
Yeah, I don't think we need to say anymore.
What is abundantly clear to me in looking at the international refugee regime is that reform is necessary, that the consequences of not reforming the international refugee regime is just simply not acceptable to me, and most certainly not acceptable to the tens of millions of refugees and asylum seekers living across the world in precarity.
But people being forced to move is not going to magically disappear just because of all of our government's tactics.
The forces that compel people to move, to leave their homes, are always going to be stronger than any deterrent policies you can put up, any walls you can put up, any operations you can mount to deter people. The forces that are compelling people to move are incredibly powerful, and those are the things that need addressing. Displacement by climate, displacement by war and persecution, all of those things.
The UNHCR reports that hazards resulting from the increased intensity and frequency of extreme weather events are already causing an average of over 20 million people to leave their homes each year.
We see that a lot of nation states in the wealthier parts of the world are on this steady course where they're increasing their budgets for border security, right? They're trying to control it. They're trying to stop movement. They're introducing these new technologies. It's a very dangerous cocktail. So I think taking a step back and understanding, actually, what's the real threat? I think about that all the time living in the US. I'm like, okay, we're pouring all of these billions of dollars into the border and surveillance industry. Meanwhile, what's the real threat? Maybe we could do with better, you name it, right? Education, the road to the airport is a disaster. So many people are killing themselves with guns. So there are real threats that are, we could be devoting all of these resources to instead of migrants, which is just a person who needs to move.
Whoa, okay, so we don't want another Nadeslingam family situation to happen again, but in reality, other asylum seekers are faring much worse. They get turned back to an unsafe country before they even reach Australia, or before they can make their asylum seeker claims properly. Or they're kept offshore and we just never hear about them and never get a chance to even know they exist.
We could use all that money and effort to help them and give them a better life, but we don't.
Forced migration, the mass movement of people across the globe, is going to be one of the sort of defining forces of the 21st century. This is an era, we live in an era of displacement. 1 in 100 people in the world is forcibly displaced from their home. We are going to see millions, tens of millions of people forced out and forced to move by conflict, by climate, by all manner of persecution. And to pretend that this is just something that Australia can deal with in isolation with its suite of policies is to ignore the reality of the situation. And I think Australia so often asks the wrong questions here. We talk about, well, what does Australia need to do to stop this? What does Australia need to do to address this issue? The question we should be asking is, what are the policies Australia is able to enact that mean that more people who need protection can get it? And that's the question that keeps getting lost.
So it is Sunday the 12th of June. We are walking to Dhanika's birthday. Dhanika's 5th birthday.
Her first birthday outside of detention, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. The theme is pink, Can you please describe what we're wearing?
We are wearing pink ribbons on our forehead/head as a bow. Jay's also wearing a pink ribbon around his neck, which I don't quite understand aesthetically, but you do you, Jay.
It's like a bow tie.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Lots of mixing of ideas. And then we're also wearing beautiful fairy wings. We look V-cute, and as we're walking down the street, I just saw a car drive past, and the woman just like quickly...
She glanced our way?
Yeah. She's like, the fuck?
Hi.
Hello.
We had to. It's a pink party.
Soon the family arrives. Tharnika is in a super cute pink dress and sweater. Biloela has never been so pink.
Birthday, dear Tani.
We quickly sing happy birthday and the birthday games begin.
The community has organized every birthday game imaginable. Pass the parcel, pin the tail on the donkey.
Except it's pin the seahorse on the seahorse.
Oh yeah, that's right. And eating donuts on strings with no hands.
They're hitting a pinata. That's so cute.
Limbo.
Except Kopika and Tharnika don't know how to play Limbo because 4 years in detention means that they haven't actually played before.
It's like they were making up for all the birthdays that were missed.
For Bronwyn's youngest son, Harry, the dream of the park playdate with Kopika and Tharnika is coming true.
Are you guys having a good time?
Yeah. Higher. Higher.
Higher? Do you want to go really high?
Yes.
Okay, tell me if it's too high.
Okay.
Higher. You probably just want to go.
It has been a really long journey for the Home to Billow team. After over 4 years of meetings and rallies and medical emergencies and last-minute injunctions, the team is understandably tired.
There are holidays that you're on where you sort of drop everything and say, I can't do this at the moment, or something has popped up with Nades and Priya. Yeah, with hindsight, you sort of think, oh yeah, I sort of checked out there a bit.
I literally have just a couple of weeks ago come from a psychiatrist appointment where they have said, you know, just the toll and the vicarious trauma and the juggling a workload with a full-time campaign, just that toll on myself.
You know, and then I suppose it influences decisions about whether you take new jobs or get involved in other things because you've got to factor in that, you know, you're working on this campaign that takes up, you know, a fair bit of time.
And this is the campaign team who have actually had success, one that's held it together and kept going for years. And this is the toll it's taken on them.
But what about all of those families? What about all of those people who don't have a country town rallying behind them, who don't have candlelight vigils being held for them, who don't have online petitions attracting tens of thousands of signatures, who don't have parliamentarians standing up in Parliament speaking on their defence? All of those people who are quietly suffering at the hands of this system, we don't know about, and we don't know about them because we don't know about them, and it's deliberately kept that way. It's a very arcane, very secretive system, and it's very hard to know exactly what's going on. So in some ways, they're a real tip of the iceberg, the Nadeslinagam family, in that we've got this system that allows this to happen.
And it's quite sad because we shouldn't need to fight for each and every asylum seeker the way this campaign team did. It shouldn't take the sacrifice and burnout of multiple people to get protection for people like the Nadeslinagams.
But there are crumbs of hope, Jay.
Little specks?
A dust mite. This one family's story has rippled throughout the country and the world. For the first time, a lot of Australians are questioning our harsh policies and procedures.
We were told, you know, we need these harsh laws, we need these punitive measures to keep us safe, to protect Australia. Is this what we're being protected from? Because I think that exposed for a lot of people exactly the way these very extreme powers can be misused in this way. When you take it away from that very human story of a family who are locked away for 4 years, essentially, it becomes more difficult to capture people's attention, I think. But I think that's the next stage in the discussion. It's, well, how do we create a system that doesn't engineer another Nadeslingam family saga? That's the next challenge.
But throughout this series, we've learned that at every step of the way, things are stacked against asylum seekers. JB, you love a good summary. Tell us what you've learned throughout these 6 episodes.
Gosh, so much. So firstly, yeah, a visa application system for asylum seekers is designed to not let people like Priya and Nades succeed. From a 15-minute interview that can already get you sent back, to not having the resources or knowledge of what to put in your visa application. And if you somehow end up in one of our detention centres, which are practically privatised operations, the private companies involved are incentivised to cut costs, which can mean not getting proper medical care like the Nadeslingam family experienced, or lining up for hours to get a razor like Behruz Buchani experienced.
And things like climate change are only going to make the displacement of people worse. So we're probably going to see more people fleeing to Australia, and it's going to be a polarizing topic at elections.
Which probably includes stirring up this fear of boat arrivals and drumming on about border security.
And let's not be fooled into thinking that one party is better than the other. Although the Labour Party brought the Nadeslingams home to Bilo, Labour has made its commitment to offshore processing very clear. And you're also forgetting about Sri Lanka though.
Right, of course. What a bloody history Sri Lanka has, and how horrific that our government, with the US, blankly painted the Tamil Tigers as terrorists. We also stood by as the US kind of derailed the peace talks, but then we make it difficult for Tamils who are fleeing this to seek asylum here.
And when we think about these international relationships that we have, like the one with the US, it often seems so abstract, but the reality is there are real humans trapped in the middle of all of this.
Desperate, vulnerable humans like Priya, Nades, Kopika, and Tharanika. It's their lives that are affected by all these decisions that feel like governments just wanting to stay in power and keeping favour. It's just a massive clusterfuck. And I guess the question this can come back to is this the sort of country we want to be? Is keeping people locked in detention for over 10 years, or forcing people to live in uncertainty for just as long, is that what we as Australians want to be known for? Do we want to be a world leader in harsh, brutal border policies?
Yeah. Do we want the Nadeslingam family's story to be this one-off exception, or should protection for people like them be the norm?
The day after Tharanika's birthday, Tanesh and I are packed and ready to leave Biloela for the second time in less than 3 weeks.
Fast forward a couple of months and the family receive permanent protection.
Which is a big deal, right?
Yeah, it means no more applying or reapplying for visas or bridging visas. They can live here permanently, and life is pretty normal. Nades is back working at the meatworks, and Priya is learning how to drive.
When the driving lessons...
How are your driving lessons going?
Driving is okay. Nades is teaching me. We stopped for 2 months due to the school holidays. I need to start again. I hope I can get my driver's license quickly.
Automatic or manual?
Automatic. That's enough for me.
You'll have to teach Tharnika and Gopika.
That's Nades's responsibility. He will teach them.
Cute, ordinary, but in the best way.
Or as Angela describes it,
nice and dull. Standing around the backyard watching the girls play, or Nades and Priya showing us their plants, them mocking me and Alan because we can't grow plants at all. So, it's really fun just seeing this normality.
What's life like in Bilo?
I am happy. Even though my time in detention has left me with some physical restrictions, when I go out of the house, I am happy. My friends say to me, "Hi Priya, how are you? Are you settled? Have the girls started school? How are they? How is your life going? Are you having issues?" This makes me feel happy. We have friends and a community here. They care about how I am, and that makes me happy.
What do you end up doing with your friends?
If friends invite me to a party or a birthday, I will go. Our family went to Bronwyn's for Christmas and a swim. If there are any programs or activities at the library, I will go. If there are any events at the park, I will take the kids and go. I usually don't miss any community activities.
But some things are taking a bit of adjusting.
And we were just, laughing the other day because there'd been something on at the school that had said, bring a plate. And, and so Nades and Priya literally bought a plate, not, so, and we were laughing about that and we were like, oh my gosh, yes, and so, and that's when Nades said, oh, we're new to the whole school thing too, they've not had that slow build up over the last however many years that Kopika would have been in prep.
How are Gopika and Dharnika settling into school?
Gopika and Tharnika are going to a school they like. They don't even want to leave school for a holiday because of what's happened in the past. Tharnika is afraid that if we leave here, we may not come back home. So this time around, we didn't even go on a holiday. We tell her, don't worry, we aren't going anywhere. We are staying in Biloela.
What dreams do you have for your family?
I have a simple dream. I want to raise my kids to be good people, to help people in the community, to give them a good education and have them grow up with freedom. I want girls to have freedom. Where I grew up, girls didn't really have freedom. I want to be one with the community and live a free life. I want to remain grateful. I want to hold this gratitude in my heart when I see this community. I want to be loving and soft. Otherwise, I don't have any big dreams. I just want to live a simple life.
It's been a long journey for this family to finally make it back to Biloela.
So we wanted to know what they think of their whole experience. What would you like to say to Australians?
There are two things I would like to say. The first is on behalf of asylum seekers. We come here on boats as a last resort. Many say we haven't come through the right channels. But we know this is not wrong. Those who have come seeking asylum should be given a life of protection and freedom. They should be seen as humans. Don't look at us as the other, but as one of you. Secondly, my life in Biloela is a victory for love. Love that's been shown by the Australian people. I am thankful to be given permission to live here. It's through the power of the people that I was able to return to Biloela. So I would like to thank all Australians.
When you think of Australia, how do you feel?
No matter what difficulties we have endured since coming here, we are now safe. Australia is a good country, a lucky country. It's our bad luck that we struggled, but Australian people are kind-hearted. I feel lucky to live in Australia.
Do you think your experience will have a positive impact for other asylum seekers?
Definitely. We think there'll be change. Australian people now know the hardships that asylum seekers endure, and they will come to know more. For people who came like us, for people who are going to seek asylum just like us, they should not have to go through what we went through.
Do you think your experience is going to help other asylum seekers like you?
As I've spoken out about my experience, Australians have come to know the other side of a refugee's life. I think in the future, refugees like me will have a good outcome. They will not have the difficulties that I had. They should have a good outcome. We have had nothing. But I 100% believe that in the future, good things will happen.
How do you feel? What other questions do you have? And what could we have done better? Let us know at You Have Been Told a Lie on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Because Twitter has a character limit for its handles, find us at Been Told a Lie on Twitter.
If you want to see the footage of the family touching down in Biloela, or our cute pink outfits to Tharnika's first birthday back home, Or to learn more about Australia's overseas public information campaigns, head to our website youhavebeentoldallie.com, where you can also find all of our references and the transcript for this episode.
We note that asylum seekers experience a lot of trauma, not only before arriving at our borders, but also living in detention. This has an impact on recollection and details.
Due to the nature of Priya and Nadez's journey across borders, there are some aspects of their story that we will only ever know from their perspective. We've reached out to relevant parties where possible, and where comments were provided, a summary has been included.
This episode is written by Jay Uy and produced by Jay Uy and Tanesh Dhalanagaraja, me.
Audio editing is by myself.
Tamil translations by me and Neerja Sammuganathan.
Priya's English translation is voiced by Emma Harvey, and Nadez's English translation is voiced by Matthew Predney.
The consulting producer is Rebecca Holt.
Special thanks to Priya, Nadez, Korpika, Tharnika, the Home to Billa team, and the interviewees in this episode: Simone Cameron, Bronwyn Dendel, Varshini Rizwan, Angela Fredericks, Josh Watkins, Ben Doherty, and Maeve Higgins, as well as Wendy Wiseman from the Kaboomers for letting us use their music in this episode. And a shout out to the interviewees we couldn't fit into the series: Dakshini Surya Kumaran, Marion Meisner, Marie Austin, Lorraine Webster, Robert Connell, and Neerja Sammuganathan.
Thanks to Miles Martignoni, Jess Beneth, Cassandra Steeth, and Scott Spark for script and story advice, and MacArthur Amy for helping with research and fact-checking.
This series is possible thanks to the Jesse Cox Audio Fellowship. Thank you Kumin Liu, Benjamin Law, Scott Spark, Jess Beneth, Carly Reid, Claire Holland, and the rest of the team.
There have been many people we've spoken to who have helped in so many ways, and many who have asked to remain anonymous. We see you, and we thank you for your support.
This podcast was written, edited, and produced on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We acknowledge all elders past, present, and emerging.
We also pay our respects to the traditional custodians of Gungaloo country, where Biloela is now situated. This land was never ceded, always was, and always will be Aboriginal land.